What's up, Grayson Report? Happy Monday. What is up? Carol, Tammy, NJS55, D Nice, Wendy, Matthew with the hello, Joanne, Julissa, Chris Barber, Tales Told in the Dark. How's it going? And what is up, Crypto Rat? Welcome to the Wolf Pack. Hearts for Crypto Rat, guys. How's everyone doing, and how was your and how's it going, and how was your weekend? Leonore, what is up? Lisa Boo, how's it going? We'll wait for some people to trickle in before we get into the nitty gritty. So how was your guys' weekend? Did any of you guys do anything spooky? Watch anything interesting? And thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Welcome, Panda Bear, Little Fig, Judy, McNulty, Carbonized, and Rebecca to the Wolfpack. Hearts to Anne and the new and returning Wolfpack members. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. And guys, also hearts for Crypto Rat for becoming a Wolfpack member as well before the stream even started. Julissa went camping. Oh, that sounds cool. That's super cool. Julissa, where'd you go camping at? That sounds fun. Leonore watched the OG Salem's Lot. I haven't seen I don't think I've seen the OG or the new one on Mac. I haven't gotten a chance yet. Emily, what is up? I haven't had a chance to watch anything spooky yet. Trying to think, did I know I caught up on my true crime docs. That's about it, but I didn't get a chance to watch anything spooky. I mean, it's a true crime documentary that takes it's things like murders that happened on Elm Street, so I guess that could be considered spooky. Matthew goes, for anyone that is wondering, both the Salem lots are on Max. Julissa goes Lake Berryessa and got to sleep in my sister's trailer, didn't have to tent camp. Oh, that is cool. Wendy got a Berkeley Royal water filter since we have to boil water. Oh, that's cool. Gunner Girl, what is up? Chris finally got a chance to see Terrifier 1 and 2. What did you think? I know it's a gory film. 3 is now in theaters. You guys are theater going people. I'm mostly a sit at home, watch movies on the couch type of girl. Chris goes gory. Yes, it is gory. That is what it's known for. I think that's what it's mostly known for. And the crazy clown. Art the clown is just crazy in it. He does not say a word. That's what is cool about it. He's more like with his facial expressions, and you're like, Leonore goes, Long Beach had to boil water. Oh no, I think I heard that. It's crazy when you have to do that. And then I also know I know some electric companies are turning power off here. I haven't had that problem yet, but I know it's happening because of fire danger, because I did get a warning, but it hadn't happened. Because of fire warning, so they're doing that. Nerd Report in the house. Bernadette, what is up? Bernadette, you just got out of work? What? It must have been one of those days, Bernadette. That's crazy. Matthew goes, Bill Gibson, who owns a car restored from screen used Christine. His Christine ran over Art the Clown at a convention. That is so, oh, that is cool. Bernadette, I feel for you. Gonna have to work late all this week. Oh. It was for, Matthew goes, it was for a photo op. That is super cool. Emily's saying there's 3 Salem's Lot. There's the 70s David Soul Salem's Lot, the Rob Lowe Salem's Lot, and the new one. I might have seen the Rob Lowe one. I don't know. That kind of rings a bell, but I'm not 100% sure. I know I haven't seen the 70s one. And I did not read the book as well. I was not much of a growing up, I wasn't much into reading books until I got older, and then I just really never I like Stephen King movies, but I never really got into his books. I think it was because, you know, especially when you're a kid that doesn't like reading that much and you see a book this big. Yeah. Carol goes, the book was better. Usually I do agree with you on that one, Carol. The books are usually better because the one thing I like about books is that you read the thoughts of the of the character. I want to say actor, the character, so you know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. You you get lost in that in a way too, but with movie, it's you're just watching them act that, like, it's you don't know what's going on in their head. So I kind of like the fact that you're kind of reading what's going on in their head and then seeing the world through their eyes. Unlike with a movie where you're kind of just watching back and you're seeing the characters play out the story. D Nice is back. Emily, I know because I remember seeing Emily says they broke down his books down into miniseries. I remember the Tommy Knockers. In fact, they let us watch I forgot what class it was. One of the classes I was in high school, I remember they let us watch the Tommy Knockers. But I forgot what class it was. I don't think it was English class. And Gunner Girl, I agree. They usually are because movies have to limit and take out parts. They also too, sometimes the director puts their flair into the movie. I'm not saying like all of them do, but sometimes they'll put like their flair to match their vision type of thing. So true. Bernadette got into Legion on Hulu. It's about mutants. Thank you, Anne. Anne goes, you're such a good story reader, storyteller. Love your chat. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. It was, Carol, yep, it was as well. Wendy goes, in drama class, we had to read the books first. Wow. I was never in drama class, so I don't know. Was it? I was never into drama, though. So I never went that direction. Thank you, Gunner Girl. Elaine, what is up? All right, I'm going to wait a few more minutes for people to trickle in, but while we're waiting, I do have this cool story, and then we'll get into the crimes that were inspired by Halloween movies. I know I had mentioned Scream in the last stream with the 2 teenage boys, and they unalived their friend because they were inspired by the movie Scream. Also talked about the real life crime as well that was inspired the screenwriter of the movie Scream to write the movie. But there are a lot more that I did not know about, but we'll get into the nitty-gritty. But this is the haunted Wyoming lost hunter saved by ghost boy in Bighorn Mountains. This is kind of crazy. A 17-year-old hunter lost on Trapper Creek in Wyoming's Bighorn Mountain in 1951 found his way thanks to a boy in a red flannel shirt. Locals say he was saved by the ghost of another 17-year-old who died on his own hunting trip 19 years before. In 1951, real quick, I have ADD today, sorry guys. Real quick, because I always forget to say Skeleduck is somewhere in my background. I did not forget him. He's somewhere in this background. It doesn't matter what studio I am in, he will be in there unless I forgot him, like previous stream. If you guys aren't familiar with Skeleduck, he is located in my upper left-hand corner. It might be your upper right-hand corner. That is what he looks like. He is somewhere hidden in this background, and just remind me and I will reveal his location at the end of the stream because I will forget. So in 1951, a hunting trip in Wyoming's backcountry took a dire turn for a teenage hunter when he became lost in a thick fog. He believes that he would have come to a tragic end except for a supernatural intervention. That, to this day, he cannot explain. The hunter had told this story to Deborah D. Mumm, author of Wyoming Ghost Stories, but asked to remain anonymous. He had kept his story secret for more than 35 years and still had no answer for what had happened to him all those years ago. He just knows that it is real and not a tall tale, despite what naysayers may claim. It was the fall 73 years ago, and the 17-year-old was hunting elk with his father and a small group of men. They had left their camp on a cold, cloudy dawn to hunt in the timber of North Trapper Creek in the Bighorn Mountains. They could see their breath as they plunged deeper into the woods, rifles in hand. The tall pines towered above them as they hiked, the crunch of their boots the only sound in the desolate country. The rugged cliffs, spires, and massive rock outcrops emphasized the rugged isolation of the landscape. The clear, cascading Trapper's Creek ran through the canyon, its waters glimmering in the cool, crisp air. By mid-morning, the hunters ran into a herd of elk, and each one was successful in bringing down their prey. For the rest of the morning and into the early afternoon, the men cleaned and tagged their game. Afterwards, they rested and talked among themselves, enjoying the solitude of the bighorns. According to Mumm, as they chatted, the weather turned colder and a heavier fog began to settle in. It was mid-afternoon when, as the youngest in the party, the 17-year-old was chosen to walk back to their camp to bring back the pickup truck. He knew the area well, and his father was confident in his abilities to find the camp, which was 2 or 3 miles away, across 2 canyons and the North Trapper Creek. However, the teenager hadn't gotten far when the fog became even thicker. And thank you for being a member of the Wolf Pack for 18 months! Hearts for Anne. Answer a laughing stock. I find it humorous. What did you say, Anne? Hold on. Did I miss something? Daniel, what is up? What do you get when you boil a funny bone? Anne goes, a laughing stock. I find it humorous. Hearts for Anne, guys. Thank you, Anne. Now it makes sense. I was reading the punchline first. I knew right then that things weren't right. The white mist rolled in all around him, nearly obscuring his view completely. He lost his bearings and did not know if he had crossed one or both of the small canyons. Rather than to head back, he forged on ahead. His path became steeper and rougher. I knew then that things weren't right, the hunter leader told Munn. The fog by that time was so thick that I couldn't make out any familiar landmarks. I considered staying put, building a large fire and waiting it out. the way I had been taught, but for some reason I kept going. I was getting very tired and a little panicky when I suddenly looked up into a clearing. There was a faint image of a boy standing there. He was wearing a red flannel shirt and pointing in the direction opposite to where I was headed. I hollered at him, but before he could say or do anything else, the fog moved into the clearing and he disappeared. Still not knowing where I was, I began walking in the direction he had pointed, and I soon came to a road. I followed it and walked right into our camp. Stunned but relieved, the young hunter waited in camp until the fog lifted. He then drove the pickup back to where his dad and the others were waiting. I asked if anyone had seen a young kid with a red flannel shirt, but everyone said no, he said. They loaded up the game and drove back to camp, but then it was dark and they hung their elk in the tree. He helped another hunter. The teenager could not stop thinking about what he had seen and was convinced that it had not been a real person standing there. The next day, still bothered about what he had seen, he left his group and drove over to our nearby hunting camp to ask if anyone there had gotten lost in the fog. One of the men had. He said he had begun to lose his sense of direction when suddenly he saw a boy in a red flannel shirt. The boy motioned urgently for the hunter to stay where he was. Taking heed, the man built a fire on a ridge and stayed there all night. When he started back to camp the next morning, he discovered that if he had kept moving in the thick fog, he would have walked right over a very steep ledge. He told me that there had been something strange about the boy, and as tired as he was from the day's ordeal, he hadn't been able to sleep, the hunter said. I didn't tell him that I had stayed awake the night before for the same reason. And a sheep herder. That wasn't the end of the story. Later, an old Basque sheep herder and gray bull told a strange tale to the astonished teenager. He said that the year before, he had encountered the apparition of a boy who got lost and died on Trapper Creek. The 17-year-old did not tell the sheep herder his own story, but believed the sheep herder had seen the same apparition. In the past, he would have regarded it as a tall tale, but now he said he knew better. That boy in the red flannel shirt had been real and had saved his life. He told Munn, being as young and scared as I was, however, I kept the story bottled up inside for me for more than 35 years until now. I've been hunting and fishing in the Trapper Creek area many times since 1951, but I've never seen any more apparitions, and I don't know if anyone besides the elk hunter or the sheep herder has either. To add to the mystery of this tale, the Basque sheep herders had told the young hunter a true story. A boy had indeed become lost and died on Trapper Creek. It had happened only 19 years before. On Sunday, October 30th of 1932, the Casper Star-Tribune wrote about the tragedy. Dylan McKinnon was a 17-year-old gray bull youth who was one of the 3 big game hunters lost in the Bighorn Mountains in late October. A severe snowstorm had swept that district, and afterward, searchers scorched the area for the young man, risking their own lives as the storm worsened. McKinnon had been last seen on Monday at noon, not far from the Shell Ranger station between Gray Bull and Sheridan. He had shot an elk and was en route along to bring it in. A party of 14 men from Gray Bull took up the search, but returned when a dense fog descended on the mountains, accompanied by severe cold weather. The teens' parents were hanging desperately to the hope that their son had found refuge in an out-of-the-way cabin. Two weeks later, the searchers for Casper had success. They waded through snow 3 feet deep in the black crest of the big game country and deep into the woods. They had given up hope of finding McKinnon when they found his body buried under a half-foot of snow. The editors of the Jackson Hole Courier wrote that the resourceful and true son of the mountains, McKinnon, had tramped more than 15 miles from his camp in search of shelter from sub-zero weather and swirling snows, only to fall into an exhaustive sleep from which he never awakened. When found at the head of the Trapper Creek at an elevation of nearly 8,000 feet, McKinnon was resting on a bed of pine boughs. Beside him was his pew-pew and his boots and stockings. Seemingly, they said, the youth in utter exhaustion yielded to the necessity of rest. Was the apparition of the red flannel shirt that saved the hunter in 1951 Dylan McKinnon? If so, 17-year-old McKinnon had saved his fellow hunters from suffering his own fate at Trapper's Creek nearly 20 years after his own death. This mystery may never be solved, but for the 3 men who saw the boy in the red flannel shirt, they know that he was very real and saved their lives more than 70 years ago. That story is amazing. I love stories like that. Obviously it's something they can't explain, but they do know that the boy was not was a ghost in sense. But he helped them. So I like stories like that, regardless of the mystery. Whoever the boy in the red flannel shirt saved their lives. Which is pretty cool. Julissa goes, wow, great. It is a great story. Elaine goes, cabin in the woods. Elaine goes, this is a great story as well. It is. I enjoyed that story. It was well written too. I like stories like that because I do believe that spirits can help us from the afterlife. I do believe that we do get signs. We have our guardian angels out there. He's definitely a guardian angel to those who get lost in that area. It is a sweet deed that he chooses to do in the afterlife. He chooses to help people so they don't end up like him, and that's kind of sweet. And I do believe this story is true. I don't think he's I don't think he's full of baloney. Gunner Girl goes, absolutely awesome. Emily, definitely a guardian angel of sorts. Wendy, also got to be careful when you're hunting and out there in the woods because weather can change out of nowhere. And that's the crazy thing. Even if you know an area well, there could be something that could cause you to not know the area. So just always be aware of your surroundings. There's sometimes like I felt like in this case, you couldn't help because of the fog. Obviously, if you can't see where you're going clearly, you're not going to be able to find your way no matter how well you know the area. So I know, as I was saying earlier, I did share. I thought this was kind of crazy that there are more murders that were inspired by some horror movies. I did speak about previous stream about the two boys, 16-year-old boys, who were inspired by Scream, and filmed it. Decided to unalive one of their friends, and a 16-year-old girl that did not deserve that. And I was telling you guys, I was like, this is crazy. Who thinks of these things at 16? And a lot of you were, because I had asked a lot of you guys as well, like, what were you guys doing at 16? And a lot of you were like, oh, I had my boyfriend, boys, you know, messing or stuff like that. None of us were thinking about what these kids were thinking about. And I also spoke about, I like to do a lot of like with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Scream, like what were those movies inspired by? And I've also talked about that as well. This is the 11 chilling murders that were inspired by some of your favorite horror movies from Scream. And this is another one this is another Scream inspired crime, which is crazy. To Friday the 13th, some of the most famous horror movies of all time have inspired people to commit heinous real life crimes. I mean, I watch these movies. I don't think of anything else. I don't think of I one of my favorite slashers is Jason from Friday the 13th. I don't even think about acting like him at all, ever. So this kind of, it makes me wonder what goes through people's heads sometimes. That they actually look at these horror films and think, oh, let's do this in real life. I don't, it baffles me sometimes. But there are some kind of people, there's some people out there that just mentally where these things happen. DJ Knight goes, even more scarier than Sigourney Weaver turning into a terror dog. Elaine goes, getting the hell out of the house because I had just gotten my license when she turned 16. Definitely. So normal people do not think about what they're watching and actually actually making them, brought to life type of thing. So the bloody versions of the horror genre have been blamed fairly or not for a variety of society's ills over the years, and while modern understanding of psychology have largely put a damper on so-called moral panics over movies, several cases do exist where people carry out horrific real-life acts that were apparently inspired by screen horror. Irrationally motivated by The Purge 2013, a 19-year-old Jonathan Cruz purposefully unalived three strangers. Patricia Ann Fraser, in her own unique blending of fact and fiction, was so mentally disturbed by The Exorcist in 1973 that she did what? That she I am not going to read that. You guys could probably see it on that she seed her daughter's heart out. As far as murders inspired by horror movies go, that is crazy. I'm sorry, I'm still in shock about that one. Who can I could never think. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I would never fathom doing that to my kid. I wouldn't know. As far as murders inspired by horror movies go, these 11 cases certainly run the gamut. Some perpetrators were mentally disturbed long before dwelling on a particular film. Others were sound of mind when they planned their murders after watching the fictional crimes on screen. In every case, however, it certainly appears that horror movies inspired them to kill. That is crazy. Lisa Boo goes, wow, no, never. Definitely never. Carol goes, I didn't get my, that's kind of cool, actually, Carol. I didn't get my civilian license until I was 18, but I had my military license at 17. Matthew goes, I saw Temple of Doom. I'm not going to do that same thing from that film. Exactly. I love Temple of Doom, by the way, Matthew. That's one of my favorites. But yes, exactly. I'm not going to perform Mullerum's sacrificial ceremony on someone. You know what I mean? Like, come on. How Scream inspired two cousins to kill. Scream revolved around two teenagers who embarked on a killing spree that subverted famous horror movie tropes. It began with the murder of a high school girl portrayed by Drew Barrymore and centers on a classmate whose mother was murdered. Mario Padilla's plan appeared glaringly similar. Scream came out in 1996. They are coming out with a seventh film, I believe, but I feel like the seventh Scream is going to be doomed because from the start, obviously Jenna Ortega couldn't make it because she was filming Wednesday, I think, at the time. She did Beetlejuice, and Wednesday, so she couldn't make it to Scream. They let go of one of the actresses because of her political beliefs. They did bring in Neve Campbell is her name. They brought her back in, but I still feel like it's doomed because of that bad start. Inspired by Scream in 1996 and Scream 2 in 1997, the 17-year-old convinced his 14-year-old cousin Samuel Ramirez to help. They went through with it on January 13th of 1998 using 4 knives and a screwdriver to do the deed. What? How old were these kids? 17 years old. 17 years old and 14 years old. Padilla stabbed his mother, Gina Castillo, to death while Ramirez held her down. My son, he's 16. He just stabbed me, said Castillo on the phone to 911. While Compton Superior Court Judge John Chorowski disallowed any mention of the Scream movies at trial, the teenage killers had admitted to their influence upon being arrested. Preliminary hearings showed that Padilla had also targeted a classmate who resembled Drew Barrymore and revealed more shocking details about what they had planned. The crime had been developing for years. The teenagers had planned to buy a pair of costumes and electronic voice modulators made famous by the films in order to mask their identities. Here is Mario Padilla and Samuel Ramirez. Mario was 17, Samuel was 14. I've been watching television since the age of 7, said Padilla. It is ironic how people say do not let your kids watch TV at that age because it really does affect them. All I would do is fantasize how to do things I could not do. I watched TV at a young age and the teens had apparently stolen $150 in baptismal gifts for Castillo's 1-month-old daughter and planned to unalive her husband, Pedro Castillo. Next, fortunately, police arrived before they could, also finding evidence that they had planned on unaliving 5 other people. Convicted of first-degree murder. Like, I am in shock sometimes when I read these things. Convicted of first-degree murder and 5 counts of conspiracy to murder, Padilla was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and Ramirez to 25 years to life. You need a cat to copy. In this case, Scream is that cat, said psychologist Madeline Levine. There was a whole bunch of reasons why they acted out that way, but did the movie provide a blueprint? Absolutely. Like I said, what were you guys doing at 17 and 14? I don't know. It does not say how they were raised or their backstory, because sometimes that can give a little indication of their upbringing to this point, to why how I feel like to kind of see why their life was going in that direction. But it's crazy. Elaine goes, they need to learn how to work on a car, not use tools. I agree, as weapons. Julissa goes, TV should not affect kids to do that kind of stuff. I watched TV at a young age and would never. Same here, Julissa. Leonora goes, 80s kid. Parents told me to close my eyes when necessary. True. Or they didn't have me watch the movie, but I pretty much was able to watch. My dad wasn't really into horror movies. He was more into like sci-fi action, like the police type of military type of movies. So that was what I watched. But even so, I never, you know what I mean? I never even thought of doing that when I watch, horror movies or any movie for that matter. I mean, obviously, if you saw like Indiana Jones, you wanted to be Indiana Jones type of thing. Maybe I did that when I was a kid, but not something like these two, teenagers did. Chris Barber goes, Mom used to take me to scary movies starting at the age of 6. Gunner Girl also said, too, she had to close her eyes during some things or leave the room. D Nice goes, no, I wasn't even old enough to watch Scream in the 90s. What I got out of that movie is stovetop popcorn is a nunk. Dusty, what is up? Wendy goes, I was a 70s kid up to no good. Julissa goes, right, were their parents? Oh, popcorn, stovetop popcorn is a no-no, yes. Do you guys remember that Jiffy Pop? And it wasn't like we have now where it's a micro. I think they still sell them though. Wasn't like we had now where you have a box where you take a bag out, put it in the microwave, watch it pop. I still burn it every once in a while. They had the stovetop one where you turned on the stove and then you kind of, put the container. It was like this foil container that kind of looked like a saucer pan that already had the popcorn kernels in it, and you kind of did this and watch it pop. Yeah. Those were the days. Carol goes, same here, early 70s kids. Wendy would watch a creature double feature. DJ Knight, oh my God, kids will never do this. Matthew goes, for Christine, it made me want a 58 Plymouth, but that is about it. With many films and shows with cars I like. True. You may like, that car's badass, by the way, Matthew. But you may see a car in a movie that you would want one day, but never to the point of doing what these two kids. Leonardo goes, I watched it, but like Lisa, my pops was a shoulder, and for some reason he made me obsessed with certain movies. Some horror movies are are hilarious according to him, made me feel like wow. Daniel goes, Jiffy Pop was the bomb. But my point is, we never thought, and I know now it's seeming, the more I'm hearing as the years go on, I hear more and more kids, younger and younger, doing stuff like these two kids did, and it's disheartening because it's like, where were the parents? Like, what happened? Like, how were they there for them? Like, or you know what I mean? I've seen it. In fact, one of the true crime docs I was watching was about a sister, and she had two brothers and came from a loving family. But there was something wrong with one of the brothers, and he ended up unaliving the father years later. But he came from a loving family, but growing up, she saw that he had issues. So it may not even be that. It could be something that you were just born. I don't know. I don't want to say this. This is my opinion, guys. I don't know if this is like, maybe you're wired that way for some odd reason, and might not necessarily be your upbringing. It could be for something else, or like a chemical imbalance or something. I do not know. I'm always curious as to what's going on through these, kids' heads when they're doing these things. You know what I mean? Elaine goes, it's going to sound cliche, but social media has ruined the original reason for horror films. I mean, you're seeing a lot. True. True. So Halloween 2 and the Richard Boyer murders. Halloween 2 is the one that takes place, I believe, in the hospital. I think John Carpenter did not want to make this film, if I'm not mistaken. John Carpenter's Halloween 1978 was made on a shoestring budget, yet because the most successful independent film of all time, it introduced a slasher icon for the ages in Michael Myers, a 6-year-old boy who murdered. Same thing, this is like something out of the movies. What 6-year-old would, you know what I mean? Like, what's going through their head? It makes me wonder. A 6-year-old boy who murdered his sister and returned to kill again on Halloween 15 years later. Michael Myers is probably the one that put slasher films on the map. And then after that, it seemed like every other movie was a slasher. Following Friday the 13th, and there was Terror Train. I think it was Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine. The list goes on. While its 1981 sequel wasn't as critically acclaimed, it was the first time the character of Michael Myers inspired a violent crime off-screen. The film featured Myers breaking into the home of an elderly couple to steal a kitchen knife, while someone in reality went a step further. On December 7th, 1982. So the movie came out, I believe, in 1981. So this happened 1982. Richard Delmer Boyer entered the residence of Francis and Eileen Harbitz and unalived the elderly couple. Their bodies were found 5 days later by their son William. Francis was found propped up against a blood-splattered hallway wall, while his wife was laying in a pool of blood with 43 stab wounds. Oh my God, between the two. Boyer had done yard work for the couple in the past, and their son remembered that he always carried a buck on his belt. So suspicion naturally fell on Boyer. A search for the El Monte, California residence home. This happened here? What? Yielded a knife covered in blood residue, leading to his arrest. So here is a picture of Boyer, and he's still on the death row to this day. And it looks like this picture was taken in 2007. This article, I think, is 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Boyer said he had driven to the Harbits' home to borrow money, but that he had smoked PCP on the way and suffered a violent flashback to Halloween 2 upon arriving. He also claimed to have seen it countless times while inebriated. While a feature film being submitted as evidence at a murder trial was a historic first, the jury ultimately found Boyer's defense improbable. He was sentenced to death for 2 counts of first-degree murder. But really, who watched? Like, I don't get it. It's like I was saying, like, we'll watch, like, Matthew made, he used an example of Temple of Doom. We're not going to reenact Mullerum's sacrificial scene. You know what I mean? I've watched Halloween a gazillion times. I've watched the second one a gazillion times. I'm not going to think about it and reenact it in real life. I mean, he was inebriated with both alcohol and drugs, but still there's no excuse for it. Emily goes, or does it have to do with all the different mental health drugs that parents or kids have been on? Maybe. Matthew goes, I would have liked it better if they can just continue to have different stories for Halloween. Leonora goes, no excuse. Mark Branch, the Friday the 13th copycat killer. And like I said earlier, Friday the 13th is my ultimate favorite movie of all time. He is my favorite slasher. I pretty much like them all, but he is my favorite. I have a special place in my heart for Jason. As a grocery store clerk who rented horror movies in his spare time, Mark Branch seemed like any other teenager of the 80s. However, the 19-year-old native of Greenfield, Massachusetts was anything but. On October 24th of 1988, he made his horror film fantasies a reality by unaliving an 18-year-old college student while dressed as Jason from Friday the 13th. Sharon Gregory's body was found in her bathtub by her identical twin Cheryl, while Branch himself was nowhere to be found. After slicing up her abdomen, chest, and head, the mass killer vanished into the night. That had to suck for her sister. I would never want to. I hope no one ever has to come into that scene or see something like that, especially if it's someone you love and know that. Oh, people reported seeing Branch skulking about town. Authorities initially had no luck tracking down their prime suspect. However, authorities learned that Gregory had been writing an evaluation of the man for her Greenfield Community College psychology class. Sharon Gregory had in her possession a psychology profile of Mark Branch, and that profile was wanted badly by Mark Branch, said Greenfield Police Chief David McCarthy. He didn't like her having it, and he wanted it. The town shuttered its doors and canceled Halloween events. A Video Expo 1 rental store employee revealed that Branch rented strictly gore, period. The gorier, the better. A search for his home substantiated that, yielding 75 horror films, 64 true crime books, 3 knives, hockey masks, and a machete. Police set up a command post in Buckland, Massachusetts, after residents reported spotting Branch in town. Those claims were echoed in Franklin and West counties. While Branch's car was found abandoned on the edge of Greenfield's forest, he was ultimately found in Buckland on November 28th, where he had unalived himself. While his death was ruled an S, some believe locals dispense vigilante justice to Branch. Ultimately, that urban legend continues to this day, while the paper Gregory wrote about Branch remains missing. Carol goes, some of these sound like the videos I see on Explore With Us on YouTube. I've never seen that YouTube channel. Leonora, I do agree. There is help if you're willing to find it. There are plenty of hotlines. If you don't want to go in person, there's plenty of hotlines out there that you can find help. So Leonore, I guess, she was in a psychology class, the victim, and she wrote a psychological profile on the killer, and he wanted that. He wanted that, and that was and they still can't. They don't know where it went. They can't find it to this day. Like, it remains missing. So no one knows where it is. He probably didn't want, I don't know, maybe he knew himself that he had he wasn't, you know what I mean? And he didn't want anybody seeing it. I don't know. But she was just doing a psychological profile on him. That was it for class. The Port Arthur Massacre and Child's Play 2. Martin Bryant grew up without any friends, bullied and resentful. This socially awkward loner from Hobart, Australia, would curse his peers and brag about his family wealth. His only refuge was horror films and diving outing with his father. His IQ of 68 and learning disabilities has isolated him as a child, and he was only diagnosed with Asperger's when he got to prison. The troubling signs had been there all along. However, as he had tortured animals in his youth, grew fond of filmed acts between humans and animals, and became obsessive over Child's Play 2. Pictured here is Bryant. I'm guessing that is Bryant. He loved Chucky and used to go on about it all the time. And his ex-girlfriend, Janetta Hawani, it comes to life and has to kill this boy so it can be real. And then it just goes around unaliving all these people. There was a phrase in that movie that he used to say, "Don't F with Chuck." He used to get excited when he'd say that. He would think it was really cool. After completing his special education curriculum, Bryant worked as a gardener and met wealthy 59-year-old Harris, Helen Harvey, in 1988. The 21-year-old soon moved in with her and inherited over $470,000 when she died in a car accident that Bryant survived. In 1993, his father was found mysteriously unalived with a diving weight belt around his neck and an inheritance left to Bryant. Martin Bryant was 29 years old when he unalived 35 people on April 28th and 29th of 1996, known as the Port Arthur Massacre. It was the worst mass killing by a single person in Australian history. As he stalked from cafes and gift shops to toll booths and gas stations, he pew-pewed down with a semi-automatic AR-15 and L1A1 self-loading pew-pew. His victims ranged in age from 3 to 72 years old. By the time he was captured, Bryant had unalived 35 and injured 23 people. Bryant's nightmarish horror movie-inspired killing sprees also led to historic new pew-pew laws in Australia. The federal government implemented new restrictions on self-loading pew-pews and bigger pew-pews and started Australians' first buyback program for pew-pews that fell foul of the new regulations. Before the massacre, Australia had left pew-pew regulations up to each territory or state. What? 35. Oh my gosh. That's insane. Exactly. D-Nice. Leonardo's feels like Silence of the Lambs. Matthew goes, yeesh, if only a dingo got him. Leonore goes, it always starts with animals. It seems like that because that was with Dahmer as well. He had a fascination with roadkill. A Nightmare on Elm Street and Daniel Gonzalez. With its imaginative dream sequence and invented kills, Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was released in 1984, birthed a new icon of horror in Freddy Krueger. Nobody could replace Robert Englund. Armed with Knives for fingers, the dead supernatural burn victims stalked teenagers in their dreams. Tragically, one Londoner was lethally captivated by the figure. Determined to become a famous serial killer, who wants to become a serial killer? Like, really? Daniel Gonzalez went on a drug-fueled killing spree across London, Hampshire, and Sussex. He dreamt of emulating both Nightmares antagonist and Jason from Friday the 13th as Freddy vs. Jason, which came out in 2003, had hit theaters mere months before the murders. Between September 15th and 17th of 2004, the 24-year-old Surrey resident stabbed 4 elderly people to death and tried to unalive 2 others. The disturbed horror movie fan had armed himself with large knives and a hockey mask. So he was like a hybrid. Gonzalez unalived 76-year-old Derek Robinson and his 68-year-old wife, Jean of Highgate. The horror fan also unalived 73-year-old Marie Harding in Worthing, Sussex, before butchering 46-year-old Kevin Mallow in Tottenham. Peter King and Kumis Constantino, 61 and 59, respectively, survived Gonzalez's attacks. Gonzalez was diagnosed as a schizophrenic after confessing to police that he wanted to know what it would be like to be Freddy Krueger for a day. Here's a picture of Gonzalez. I watched horror movies and that all the time, fantasy and not real and that. Gonzalez told detectives, I just thought about doing it, man. What would it be like just to be maybe Freddy Krueger or something like that, just for one day? Prosecutor, I mean, I love Freddy Krueger, but I don't think about becoming him. Prosecutor Richard Horwell claimed Gonzalez had tried to convince psychiatrists he was insane to avoid murder charges. The defendant's mother, Leslie Savage, argued that her son was denied medical care for months before the attacks. She had desperately written Britain's National Health Service, NHS, for help. Does my son have to commit murder to get help? Please help him. This is very urgent. The NHS later apologized and confirmed it should have done more for Gonzalez, who was nevertheless sentenced to life in prison in 2006. He unalived himself with a CD case on August 9th of 2007. It's kind of sad I don't know, because it doesn't say, but I'm getting I'm kind of getting it that the mother was asking for help before the crime occurred, and she was pleading for help for her son and they didn't give it to her. I don't know, but that's what I'm kind of getting from the article. It's kind of sad when you are pleading for help and you don't get that help and then this happens. You know what I mean? Matthew goes, weirder when you know what kind of person Freddy was in real life and wear a costume of him. True. Very true, Matthew, because if you know the story of Freddy Krueger and how he became that way, but he is a huge horror icon. So I don't think people look at it that way, but Matthew does make a point. I don't look at it that way either. But he is a cool horror character, though, nonetheless. The Exorcist and the mother, which they kind of gave us a preview to it, unalived her daughter. I find this unimaginable. I don't know anyone who would do this. I've seen it in the news where a mother has done this to their child, and I just don't understand. I don't know if it's like I said, I just don't understand what's going through these people's heads, and it baffles me a lot of times. Oh, Matthew goes, especially seen women who dress like him. And I have too, Matthew. Bernadette goes, I mean, I wanted to become Catwoman, but I don't sew a latex costume together and go look for Batman in the city. True. Very true. I mean, like I said, I love Jason. I don't go dressing up as Jason. I mean, I have hockey masks in my my room and in my studio at home, but or like we have masks, but we don't because we like the character, but we don't actually go out and commit the, the actual movie. You know what I mean? From horror movie fans to professional film critics alike, William Friedkin's The Exorcist. He is William Friedkin is my I believe he is my birthday twin. Is frequently deemed the scariest movie of all time, while the terrifying story of a little girl possessed by a demon named Pazuzu was filmed with realism in mind. It was never meant to be taken as fact, but in February of 1980, it tragically was. This film made waves when it first came out. There was nothing like it, I think, until this movie came out. And I believe also this is what brought demons to the mind of people too, because remember how when I would speak about the Ouija board and how people would just have them laying on their coffee table, not thinking anything of it. They would use it like we would play a board game or we would play cards, you know what I mean? And then when this movie came out, that's when it all changed. So that was when the Ouija board started looking differently, like where they thought of it as a demonic type of thing, and where demons, where people feared things. And but it was very iconic at the time. And I know this movie as well made people sick when they saw it. Didn't make me sick, but when in 73, it made a few people sick as well. And a testament to the film's chilling impact, Patricia Ann Fraser hadn't even seen the explicit version when it led her to do her bidding. Catching the edited broadcast on CBS on February 12th of 1980, the 34-year-old Wichita Falls, Texas woman spent the next 10 days in sheer terror, believing her daughter was possessed. She did the unthinkable like Mullarum did in Doom to her daughter. Local jurors were left at an utter loss and failed to reach a verdict in Fraser's initial trial that November. Her attorneys had argued that she truly believed her four-year-old daughter, like what the hell, was possessed by demons. Shown The Exorcist themselves at a subsequent retrial in June of 1981, jurors found themselves increasingly believing her. I can't think of a more appropriate situation than this for an insanity defense, said Rusty Duncan, Fraser's attorney. She was crazy as hell when she committed the offense. Wichita Falls District Attorney Tim Essens claimed Fraser had pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, alleging that Fraser had a history of doing bad things to her child and was so desperate to be free of the responsibility of motherhood that she did the deed. Jurors weren't convinced, however. Ultimately, the legal proceedings lasted for more than a year. Jurors debated, imagine being on a jury for a year. Jurors debated the merits of a defense rooted in insanity and the vital impact of a film while weighing the prosecution's stern reminder that Fraser was a conscious killer. Fraser was found innocent by reason of insanity and placed in the care of her mother rather than a mental institution. Guys, in this case, what do you think do you think that was justice, that she was crazy? I mean, it did sound like she was crazy. Who thinks that your daughter is possessed? Who would even think of doing that to their own daughter? So by a movie, you know what I mean? And it's showing she saw like a edited version of it too. So Emily goes, I know the difference between reality and movies. I would never. Exactly. Chris Barber goes, I always found that movie hilarious. The Satanic Panic. Matthew, I've luckily have escaped jury duty, but I did get the dreaded notice. But for me, I don't want to be on a jury. I mean, I'm thinking in my head, if I wanted to be in a jury or like in that situation, I would have became a lawyer and I didn't. So, I know some people enjoy it. Good for them. It's just, it's not for me. I would find it, Yeah, just knowing that I may have to go in, I dread it. Dusty goes, I think people who do these kind of things are broken from similar situations in their childhood and trip when seeing it. Kyle goes, first time my son had a night terror, I thought he was possessed. Bernadette goes, crazy is as crazy does. Kyle, what is up? I'm pretty sure there's some psychologists out here that have studied these cases and probably could give a better explanation than me, but I'm always curious as to what goes through these people's heads. I really am. D-Nice goes, I got summons twice. Second time I was in the room for 4 hours just to be turned away. When I first got in, I got in the wrong line. The line was for the accused and I ran. Kyle, you are lucky. I've moved around so many times in my life, the government can't find me to be on a jury. Chris, I refused to vote for many years when they used to choose from that list. Jonathan Cruz and The Purge. We all know, if you guys are familiar with The Purge, it's a 24-hour free-for-all. It's an interesting movie. It really is. What would you do if you had... I mean, I wouldn't participate in the Purge, but it is kind of interesting to see who would participate in the Purge if we really had a Purge. What would you do in 24 hours type of thing? Inspired by political divisions of contemporary America, James DeMonico's The Purge, which was released in 2013, explored what the United States would be like if citizens were legally allowed to annually commit crimes for half a day. I actually know it's more than half a day because it's for a night. True. For 19-year-old Jonathan Cruz of Indianapolis, Indiana, that premise was taken as advice. Armed with a pew-pew, the self-professed leader of a local Bloods gang pew-pewed 3 men in the head between May 12th and May 15th of 2016, from Billy Boyd and Jay Higginbotham to Jose Alberto Ruiz. All of Cruz's victims were chosen at random. Police found Boyd pew-pewed on North College Avenue in the early morning of May 12th and found Higginbotham pew-pewed several times on North Denny Street a few hours later. Ruiz's body was found in the driver's seat of a Pontiac on North Linwood Avenue. On the last night of his 4-day killing spree, one underage girl tipped off police and revealed the cinematic inspiration for the murders, admitting that Cruz had been her... The plot thickens. Her unmentionable dealer. She told detectives that he bragged about pew-pewing a man in the back of the head. She also revealed that Cruz had tried to show her video of one of the murders and brandished a pew-pew, which led to his arrest on May 16th. Remarkably, much of the evidence they needed was on Cruz's phone. What? I purge every night now. One of his text messages read, Since I'm dying, someone else has to. So here's a picture of Cruz before and after his death. Cruz also remarkably sent his mother a screenshot of a news article on the murders. He instructed his mother to delete those after you read it, while she reminded him that they could still pull up deleted history and a presumable reference to the authorities. Cruz said that he understood and simply planned on getting a new phone and claiming his had been stolen. When police finally arrested Cruz, he was charged. The Purge-inspired pew-pew pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder in April of 2017, with footage on Cruz's phones depicting him. He videotaped himself too, guys. Pew-pewing a pew-pew while laughing, witness statements, incriminating text messages. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole in May. What? Chris, I think that's what they do now. I think with the it's not with voter registration anymore because not everyone registers to vote. I think it is the same way as yours, where they go by your license. Aileen's like, what the actual? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, what the heck? D Nice goes friendly reminder. Remember to purge your mobile photos of duplicates for free to free up space. I know we do that, but we don't actually. Dusty goes, they still choose from the voters list here. I just got a notice to come in. I don't think they do the voter list, as I said earlier. How Queen of the Dam made Alan Menzies snap. Queen of the Dam features the late Aaliyah. Amazing. I remember seeing this movie. It had amazing soundtrack because it had music that I was listening to at the time. She did an amazing job. I need to rewatch this film. Loosely based on the Anne Rice book series, The Vampire Chronicles, Queen of the Damned, released in 2002, was a critical failure following its acclaimed predecessor, Interview with a Vampire. Yeah, in that case it was. But I liked it. But for 22-year-old Alan Menzies of West Lothian, Scotland, or Lothian, the horror film had a deadly impact. Menzies would claim in court that he had seen the film more than 100 times and had regular hallucinations of Akasha, the film's vampire queen, as portrayed by the late singer Aaliyah. The character had purportedly promised Menzies that he could become an immortal vampire if he murdered somebody as a sacrifice. At the end of the day, I knew I would have to unalive someone anyway, said Menzies. It was the only way you could do it. If you don't unalive someone, you couldn't become a vampire. And on December 11th of 2002, Menzies got what he believed was his opportunity for immortality when his friend Thomas McKendrick made a disparaging remark about Queen of the Damned. Menzies claimed to have seen Akasha in his home demanding blood. Menzies said that he snapped, and I won't read this because I already have a feeling that YouTube's probably going to shut this video down with the stuff I've been talking about. He beat his 21-year-old friend over the head 10 times with a H. He then S McKendrick a total of 42 times before drinking his blood and eating partes de his skull. I don't know how to say skull in Spanish. Calavera. Burying the body in a makeshift grave nearby. No, Calavera it is. Yeah, it is. His crime was discovered weeks later and preceded Menzies' arrest. While 3 psychiatrists agreed Menzies had been suffering from a psychopathic disorder, they concluded it wasn't a mental illness and thus couldn't reduce the murder charge based on diminished responsibility. In the end, Menzies was found guilty of a murder and sentenced to life in prison, where he unalived himself in November of 2004. D Nice goes, RDR, what's up? D Nice goes, Aaliyah was my lady crush. Romeo must X and more. Matthew, that is so cool. My dad went for jury duty. The lady in charge saw him walking and she said, we will permanently take him off the list. That's so cool. D Nice also said, another reminder, purge your laundry, rid of damaged, unwearable clothing, then wash the rest. Bernadette, so then the blood didn't take, not a vampire, huh? Wow, exactly. Like, what? I know there's people that actually out there do think they're vampires, but they don't. I don't think they don't do what this guy did. Favorite vampire movie? Well, I'm trying to think. I love Underworld because it has the Likings and the vampires, the Lycans. Love Underworld. My favorite. I loved Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's not real. I mean, I guess it's a vampire because it's got Dracula in it. I did like Queen of the Damned, but it was I did like it, but it wasn't like one of my favorites. Oh, Blade. I forgot about Blade. You Cannot Blade is the ultimate vampire movie. With its iconic opening scene, with the blood rave, with the iconic music, that everyone knows. Bernadette goes in Underworld. Do they wear underwear? Bernadette. Fright Night. I forgot about Fright Night. I did like the original and the remake with Colin Farrell. I never liked Chris Sarandon. I never thought he was. I don't know. I guess some people thought Chris Sarandon was hot. I don't think Chris Sarandon's hot. So I never liked him as the vampire. He did a good job. Don't get me wrong. He's a wonderful actor. I love him in what is it? Princess Bride. But but I never thought of him. I don't know. I never thought of him as like a he didn't strike me as a vampire. But what's his face did? Colin Farrell did. Dusty goes, don't you have to be a citizen of the U.S. to be on a jury and not to get a driver's license? I believe so. It's like, I do know it's like when they do send you, like the notice, they go, it's your duty, your birthright or something. They don't say it in that exact words, but they do say something like that. It's your birthright. You must. You have to. Kind of thing. Or the men in black will come after you kind of thing. I don't know. I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure, Dusty, but I would think. But both Fright Nights I did like. Christopher Lee, he is amazing in anything he's in. Michael Hernandez, American Psycho. Michael Hernandez was 14 years old. I did speak about this in the last stream. I know there's a lot of people that haven't seen American Psycho. Christian Bale did an amazing job as Patrick Bateman. They are gonna do a readaptation of Psycho, of American Psycho. I don't know how I feel about that yet. By the Suspiria director, is helming it. But Michael Hernandez was 14 years old when he unalived his best friend Jamie Goth. It's like Van Gogh. Go. They both attended Southwood. What do you get? 14 years old. They both attended Southwood Middle School in Palomino Bay, Florida, with no outward indication of ill will prior to the assault. Luring Go into the restroom before class, Hernandez Go's throat, essing him over 40 times. Hernandez put the K in his backpack and calmly went to class. Go's body was found within moments while a teacher spotted blood on Hernandez and called the police. Hernandez admitted modeling his crimes after American Psycho, which was released in 2000. After being arrested and charged with first-degree murder, meanwhile, authorities searched his computer. His hard drive contained a text file listing Go and a friend named Andre Martin as victims. A look at his internet search history, meanwhile, revealed that he had spent the days before unaliving Go looking at a macabre illustration of dead people, baby killers in Australia, and endless reviews of American Psycho. So here is Michael Hernandez he was 14 when he committed the crime. 14. Based on the titular Bret Easton Ellis novel, American Psycho satirizes the overt indulgence, and superiority complex of privileged Wall Street brokers in the 80s, with superficiality detecting their lives. Characters mistake each other for different people as everyone looks the same in their homogeneous culture. The film's satirical element has apparently eluded Hernandez when he unalived his friend to D. He searched histories also include reviews of hip hop albums, brainwashing, big boom booms making, or bang bang making, and a manual titled How to Unalive Someone. Martin testified at Hernandez's trial that the killer was amused by horror films. His racism, meanwhile, was further evident by comments he made in prison upon being sentenced to life on November 7th of 2008. While complaining to a cellmate that America had become overly politically correct, he praised American neo-Nazi David Duke and said it would be like that if we had David Duke as president. The guy is crazy. For sure. Sarah Edmondson and Ben Darras, natural-born killers. As the child of Oklahoma State Supreme Court Justice James Edmondson and the niece of the state attorney general, Sarah Edmondson seemed destined to live lawfully. Ultimately, her upbringing appeared to have the opposite effect, as she and her lover went on an interstate killing spree modeled after Natural Born Killers, which came out in 1994. That movie's crazy. I haven't seen it in a long time. That's probably one of the movies I have to rewatch, but it is a crazy movie. The Quentin Tarantino penned film explored America's parasitic relationship between serial killers and desperation for fame. Ironically, Edmondson and her boyfriend Benjamin Darras embarked on the very quest that the film aimed to criticize 2 days after watching it on March 5th of 1995. Armed with a .38 caliber pew-pew and a full tank of gas, the couple left Muskogee, Oklahoma for Hernando, Mississippi. The two 18-year-olds had initially left to attend a Grateful Dead concert, but instead ventured out to find their first victim. On March 7th, they did. After pew-pewing businessman William Savage in the head twice, Darras ripped part of his bloodstained clothes off as a memento. It was now Edmondson's turn to kill, with the couple finding their next victim in Ponchatoula, Louisiana. I probably butchered that. I do apologize in that advance. While Edmondson pew-pewed store clerk Patsy Byers, she had failed to unalive her, leading to the couple's arrest. They are pictured here, Sarah Edmondson and Ben Darras. While Darras and Edmondson were facing armed robbery and murder charges, Byers was left paralyzed. The victim filed a lawsuit against them in July, amending it the following March to include Time Warner and Natural Born Killers director Oliver Stone. 1 day before testifying in November of 1996, Byers had passed from cancer. Her quadriplegic condition had tragically left her unable to feel any cancer-related symptoms, thereby preventing any diagnosis or treatment. Ultimately, Edmondson testified that she and Darras had taken substantial amounts of hallucinogens and watched Natural Born Killers repeatedly prior to their spree. While the case against Stone and Time Warner was dropped by a judge in 2001 on First Amendment grounds, Edmondson pleaded guilty to second-degree attempted murder and armed robbery and use of a pew-pew during a violent felony. Sentenced to 30 years in November of 1988, she was released in 2010, while Darras was sentenced to life in prison. Oh, I remember Bernadette's going, what about that movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas? I do remember that one. It was a great movie. Chris goes, horror movies make me laugh, but I don't hurt people. Exactly. It's just a movie. I watch movies to escape, not to actually get inspired by them and take notes. I mean, there are some movies out there that are inspiring, that lift you up and stuff like that, but I don't watch a horror movie and get inspired. I love horror movies in general, so I watch them because I love them. I don't watch them to get inspired to commit crimes like most of us here are. Jeffrey Dahmer and The Exorcist 3. Infamous for committing the worst serial killings in Wisconsin history, Jeffrey Dahmer. We do know about Jeffrey Dahmer. He unalived 17 boys and young men between 74 and 78, while authorities finally raided his Milwaukee apartment on July 22nd of 1991 and arrested him. They found, you could just guess, and the remains in his fridge. What many true crime aficionados aren't aware of, however, is that the child-arring and cannibalistic serial killer obsessively watched The Exorcist 3 that came out in 1990. I think The Exorcist 3 is like the weak one, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. Upon his arrest, Dahmer told Detective Dennis Murphy that he had bought a VHS copy of the film and watched it up to 3 times per week for 6 months straight. He felt that character in the movie was driven by evil, and he felt he could relate to the character because he felt he was driven by evil, Murphy told jurors at Dahmer's trial, which spanned from January of 1991 to February 1992. They did show this in the Monsters Dahmer documentary. If you guys haven't seen it, it is on Netflix. I don't want to show that picture because there is a but this is the TV. There is something on the wall I didn't want to show. Most terrifying of all, I mean, you can barely see it though, so I think I'm all right. Most terrifying of all is that some of Dahmer's victims had watched the movie with him, blissfully unaware that they would be unalived, and you guys know the rest. I'm not going to say that because I've already, like I said earlier, I already feel like YouTube's going to strike me down because of all this stuff I'm talking about. But you guys could read here. He unalived them and then did the deed. Dangerously unaware, 32-year-old Tracy Edwards found Dahmer friendly enough to accept his $100 offer to pose nude. Lured to the killer's home under a fake pretense, Edwards was pointed to Dahmer's fish tank. That's when Dahmer handcuffed him and brandished a large K, ordering him into the bedroom. Dahmer put on The Exorcist 3 and told Edward to sit on the bed. When the killer's entire personality changed, Edward said Dahmer began chanting like a slow and rocking back and forth. After 5 hours of captivity, Edwards managed to get out of there. He fought back and escaped. He later testified that he put his head on my chest, was listening to my heart, and said he was going to eat my heart. After 5 hours of captivity, Edwards managed to beat Dahmer over the head and escape, leading to Dahmer's arrest. Ultimately, The Exorcist 3 remains the only critical lauded sequel to the original. As for Jeffrey Dahmer, he was unalived in prison while serving 16 consecutive life terms in November 28th of 1994. Guys, what do you think of that? It makes you look at movies differently now. Definitely, I was not expecting Dahmer to be on that list, but it does make me look at them differently. Julissa, I agree. Horror movies should be pure entertainment, not inspiration. Dusty's asking, haven't there also been a Bonnie and Clyde admirers that had I think so, but I think so if I'm not mistaken. I think I have heard of that, Dusty. Elaine goes, don't mess with Lisa YouTube. We love her. But these were crazy. I'm definitely, when I watch these films again, I'm not going to look at them at the same light for sure. I do remember, like I said earlier, I do remember them showing in the Monsters Dahmer monster Netflix show, which is amazing. Evan Peters did an amazing job. I always liked Evan Peters in American Horror Story. He always played different characters, and he was amazing. And he no different playing Dahmer. And if you guys, like I said earlier, if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. I believe it should still be on Netflix. I liked it better than the monster one on the Menendez brothers. But they did loosely show that he would watch The Exorcist in there, and I had forgotten. Gunner Girl goes, yes, YouTube, leave Lisa alone. All right, guys, I am going to open it up. With that, I am going to open it up for questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll give you a few minutes to look for Skeleduck. He is somewhere in my background. Matthew goes, had Jeffrey's name in Demolition Man. Then a few years later, someone got him. They had to edit his name out on TV. Dusty, I don't know. I remember those commercials, but I don't know what the reason. Didn't they have to stop the M&M commercials showing them eating each other? Other M&Ms, I would believe it that they took it out because people might think of it or someone complained. But I'm not sure about that one. Bernadette's playing him made him have to see a therapist after he played Jeffrey. Poor guy. Well, yeah, because he's basically playing a serial killer. Like, he had to be in his mind so to play the character. So yeah, it probably got pretty intense for him. I can imagine filming some of the scenes too had to be intense. Carol goes, definitely will look at all movies differently now, but the articles were interesting and horrible at the same time. Elaine, I have not had a chance to see Terrifier 3. I'm waiting for it. Usually with horror movies, I kind of tend to wait for them to go on streaming. Nowadays, it seems like a movie comes on streaming quickly. So I'm waiting for that. But no, I have not seen it yet. I did hear that people are still getting sick while watching it, and it's gorier than ever. And I know Damien Leone did announce that he's making a fourth one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Love Art the Clown. He is freaky looking, but it's just basically, I mean, it's a basic gore type movie. Carol goes, speaking about the M&M commercials, they did. I just figured someone complained, in my opinion. I think too. I think usually when something like that happens, it usually means someone complained. Somebody saw it and go, oh my God, I don't want my kids seeing that. They may think of something different. I mean, it happens. There's some people that get concerned about it. No, Kyle, you are very cold. D Dice goes, I feel like Skeleduck is being farted on. No, I don't. Oh, maybe. Possibility. Bernadette is asking, and I'll take this out to the. It's a good question too for everyone in the chat. Could you ever play a serial killer for a movie if you guys had a chance? I don't think I could. I'm not an actress though, so I already know I can't. But if I were an actress, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I feel like that would take a big toll on me to play that person because literally you are getting into their head, because you are playing that person, so that could have an effect on you. Like, so I don't know. I mean, it's an opportunity to like show your skills, but as an actress or actor, but I don't know if I could. Bernadette would. Joanne goes, no. D Nice was like, no. Leonor's like, no. Kyle, no one would believe me to be a killer, so yeah, sure. Carol goes, depending on what? No way, it's snowing? No way! That's cool. We had freaking 87 degrees today. I want fall weather here in SoCal. I mean, to be honest, though, after a day of snow, I'd probably be like, I'll be on board with you guys. I'll probably be after a day. I don't like this stuff. Matthew goes, might, since it's pretending and not actually doing. Leodor goes, that would open my dark side. D Nice goes, when I accidentally scratched my nephew, I cried like a baby while he was confused. Delea, what is up? D Nice goes, a skeleton in the technical weeds? Maybe. Lisa Boo goes, it snowed here just south of me. Dusty goes, Charlize Theron got her Academy Award for her character in Monster. I haven't seen that one, but I heard that she did an amazing job in that. Matthew goes, most actors playing those characters are the nicest people. Gunner Girl goes, we were at 70 today. Our low is 60. Bad news is next week is hot again. Ugh. You were Gunner Girl. The crazy thing is you were actually cooler than we were here in SoCal. That is crazy in Arizona. It's usually the opposite. Ugh. And Gunner Girl, enjoy it though. D Nice goes, so I cannot do it. I can't be. Oh, yeah, exactly. A serial killer. How funny. I forgot I'm wearing my serial killer shirt. Like in breakfast cereal. I forgot. D Nice just reminded me. Heather, whatever, what is up? How's it going? Carbonize is going, I'd be the killer nobody saw coming, like the bubbly, sweet bake you cupcake person, but on the side. Never happened though. I'm a marshmallow. Kyle goes, the next wave of the atmospheric river is going to hit again this week. Julissa goes, I know, Julissa goes perfect for today's show. I just thought of that. I forgot I was wearing this shirt. Thank you, Lisa Boo. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa. Been a great show. Gunner Girl goes, we've gotten snow before and it snows a half hour away. It probably won't be cold until end of November. Yeah, it's about Gunner Girl. We're kind of the same. We don't get cold probably until the end of November. D Nice goes, a fun costume idea, a cereal box with a plastic K in it. That would be cool. Actually, that's a cool idea. I've never seen anyone do that. That would be cool as a costume. All right, guys. Skeleduck is right there. He is right under the I guess the Ghostbusters poster under the fan next to the Stormtrooper helmet. He is lurking in the shadows. He is right there. You could barely see him. He's by a bunch of cables. So Elaine, you were kind of I think that's what you were talking about. He's right there. He's on my right side, could be your left side. Right where my finger's pointed. like, wait a minute. Now I got what you're saying. Now I just got that, Matthew. Matthew goes, knew it. Why I asked if he could pew pew. Because, you know, stormtroopers can't aim. Dun, 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 dun. D Nice goes, my sibling did it in elementary school, Apple Jacks, while I was a washing machine with Austin Power wig. I don't know why. That's cool though, D Nice. Julissa saw the stormtrooper but missed the duck. Kyle goes, what the duck? Oh, I see it now. Dusty goes, I was looking at the stormtrooper and thought something was strange but couldn't make it out. All right, guys, any last minute questions before I end this stream? Carol has like very observant. Carol is very observant. I think no matter what, she'll find Skeleduck. No matter what. Thank you, Gunner Girl. I always love your stories and you brighten my day. Thank you, Gunner Girl. I appreciate that. Kyle goes, I got to get back to the rat hunt. I hear the scratching again. Kyle, I hope you get them. They're pesky. I've had them in my house as well a couple of years ago because they were tearing up on the other side of my hill. They were building warehouses and it used to just be a blank hill, like a plain, field. I should say blank hill, a field. And when they started digging up and building it, they all came toward the neighborhood. So I feel your pain, Kyle. They're pain in the butt to get rid of. Matthew, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Elaine goes, gotcha, Skeleduck 2 for 50,000. We shall meet again. Leonore goes, the teacher had a cap with a leaf and started blowing, saying he was a leaf blower. What? That's cool though. D Nice goes, I dislike where I do. Whenever they build them, that's when stuff that it just causes havoc. But because they did that, I do now have a water tower behind my house. So there are that's a plus. I didn't before, so that's good. Kyle goes, I wouldn't be so obsessed if my room wasn't the only room they are making holes in. Oh, super annoying. Lisa Boo goes, lots of love to Mama Lekka. Thank you. Again, keep those prayers coming for Mama Lekka. She is recovering. And with that, thank you guys for joining me on this edition of Grayson Report. I will see you on the next one, which will be Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there or be squared. Stay spooky and sweet nightmares, guys. Good night, guys, and have a great rest of your week. Good night, guys. I'll see you on the next one. You guys are awesome.